Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this new conversation organized by the Belgian Business Club Los Angeles and Amici Lovanienses. My name is Alain Charbonnier, and I'm the co-founder of the Business Club. Tonight, we would like to launch a discussion which will certainly resonate to most of us. With two Belgian entrepreneurs located in Los Angeles and in the Bay Area, we will try to give you some insights on how to adapt your business strategy when going through an extraordinary situation like we all experience today, but that could be also a financial crisis or a natural disaster. We will share with you a few keys on how to turn your activities around to be able to strive. I would like to start with 3 quick polls that will give everybody the feeling of where you are and where you are at with your business. So they will run when I'm talking. So don't hesitate to answer, and we'll have the results immediately that you will see on your screen. So let me present our speakers. We have tonight Katrien van der Schueren. Katrien is the founder and creative visionary behind Voila Creative Studio based in Los Angeles. This is a visual laboratory where she envisions, creates and fabricates a full range of bespoke fine arts, objects, furnishing, and much more. Her most recent clients include Carolina Herrera, the Wink Private Social Club, YouTube, Instagram, and the Hotel Jerome in Aspen. We have with us also Raf Peeters. Raf is founder and CEO of Qcify. That's a company based in the Silicon Valley, a technology company developing the next generation of quality control solutions for the food processing industry. Qcify artificial intelligence technology helps reduce costs, improve efficiency, eliminate human subjectivity in the quality control. Since moving to the USA in 2010, it has generated over $50 million in sales and helped successfully launch 5 technology companies in Northern America. And we have also Sophie Boutelegier. Sophie is the Chief Expansion Officer of Expandify, a business development and strategic marketing firm that helps companies develop and implement their international growth strategy. Sophie helps clients navigate the complexities, challenges, and opportunities of expanding internationally by offering a complete service that will help support and accelerate growth. Unfortunately, Martine Bolsens, the executive director of Amici Lovanienses operation on the West Coast, could not be available today to join us, but we would like to thank her for this great idea of joint panel for our business communities in California. You have the opportunity to ask questions to our panelists live during the event, and we will try to answer them after the conversations. I will also get to your attention some news. The Governor Newsom has just announced in California a new immediate assistance for small businesses impacted by COVID-19. Including temporary tax relief and grants up to $500 million. So you can see that application that has been available today, and you can do that on business.ca.gov. So I invite all of you that can be impacted by that to have checked that out. So I've seen the different polls and some of the results. But before launching our panel, it's an honor and a privilege to have with us tonight our ambassador, Mr. Régibeau, who is live with us tonight from Washington, DC, and our Consul General, Ambassador Sleeuwagen. We will now take the floor for a few words to introduce the keynotes of our ambassador. Enjoy the program.
Thank you, Alain, and thank you for you as the Belgian Business Club for organizing this webinar, you and Jean-Baptiste, and also please thank Martine Bolsens of the Amici Lovanienses for bringing us together. So I'm very eager to hear our panelists tonight, to see how they adapt and adjust to the new circumstances, and also to hear the questions from the participants. But in fact, as you said, I have a happy task tonight, and that is to introduce a new ambassador in Washington. And Ambassador Régibeau was a former ambassador in Moscow and has a long-standing career in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And in fact, just arrived here, as we said, only a few months ago in Washington during this happy and difficult times. So I'll leave the floor to Ambassador Régibeau. But I just would like to repeat the message that we always give to the participants of these webinars and to your members, Alain. That is that we, as the Consulate General, we are open and ready to serve everybody who is applying for our services. We are there for you together with our regions represented in California and San Francisco, and as a matter of fact, in the rest of the US. So we are open for any questions, any service that might arise in these difficult times. So I'll leave the floor for Ambassador Régibeau. Ambassador, please.
Thank you, Gunther. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening from Washington, DC. It's a pleasure for me to meet with you virtually. But be sure that I am planning to visit California whenever it will be possible. It's a region I visited many times in the past, and I'm planning to do so again. I know that many Belgian entrepreneurs are aiming to go to California to implement their business ID. And it's one of the tasks of our diplomatic network in the United States to help you achieve these goals. Just as the Consul General mentioned, we have 3 Consulate Generals. We have the regional representatives in several parts of the countries, and we in Washington, we rather specialize, I would say, in the contacts with the federal government of the United States. You know, the US, a lot of competences lie with the 50 different states. In this case, the Consul Generals are certainly the best way to have more information or to approach the states. When it comes to the federal government, we're probably in the best position to do it. So whenever you have a question or you're in need of support, do not hesitate to contact us. And you know also the Belgian way, since you're here attending a seminar by the Belgian Business Club. Belgium is not a hierarchical system. We work in partnership with our 3 regions. And I must say that based on my previous experience, this cooperation is always solid. We all can contribute something to the support of our economic activities. I would say, to make it simple, that we, from the foreign the ministry at federal level, we concentrate more on business to government issues. But when it comes to business, the regional colleagues are certainly in a better position. So from me also, you are certainly welcome to contact us whenever we can support you. Also, when it comes to COVID, I think it's a good example of the same rules. There is a general coordination policy here at the level of the federal government. But you have noticed that even the president-elect, Joe Biden, is very cautious in edicting rules that would be implemented nationally, because this is not just a country, it's a continent, and situations are very different from regions to regions. So in that case, also the states are probably the best point of information, and you have to refer to the states for the rules to be implemented. Maybe just a few words about what we expect in the diplomatic community in Washington, D.C. about the new administration. I think that the most important, as far as you are concerned, is the recent nomination of the economic team by President-elect Joe Biden. And it points out to a more Keynesian approach. So more willingness from the federal government to spend money, to intervene in the economy in order to support the economic activity. That's probably similar to what we are seeing also at the level of the European Union, with the big funds made available to member states to support economic activity, especially in the wake of the COVID crisis. So we can expect a somewhat more activist federal government, but certainly with at least one caveat, because everybody expects the Senate to remain in Republican hands. It would be a big political surprise if the Democrats could win both seats in the Senate in Georgia in early January. So it means that the new administration will have to deal with the Republican Party in the Congress in order to find compromise and move ahead also in terms of economic policy. Maybe also just a short word about the foreign policy teams that has been announced by President-elect Biden just a few days ago. Clearly, there is a strong change of emphasis if we compare with the current administration. The new administration will concentrate on multilateral organization. Does not mean that it will be easy to find agreements, but there is clearly a willingness to move ahead from the American side. And we expect possibilities to have a strengthened dialogue in mainly between the European Union and the United States. And you know how important it is when it comes to trade issues, for example. So whenever we can support you with all these issues, be sure that we're ready to support you. And I will also listen very carefully to the questions and the answers that will come from the people on the ground. I'm working in an office, so I'm not confronted on a daily basis with the same issues as you from the business community. So now you have the floor. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Ambassador Régibeau and Sleeuwagen, for these introductions, and thank you to support our Belgian business community during these challenging times. So I see that Martine has just joined. Thank you, Martine, for joining. And now our panel with Katrien, Sophie, and Raf. Sophie?
Hello. Yes, so this evening I am going to have a conversation with Katrien from Voila Studios in Los Angeles and with Raf from Qcify in Silicon Valley. Two entrepreneurs who have built and managed a successful business in the United States. Yes, so as we all cannot travel to different regions, let's do something different and travel back in time. So Katrien and Raf, please imagine that it's like January 2020. We don't know yet about any pandemic, or it's still very far away. Can you present yourself and your business and what your goals are for 2020? Katrien, can we start with you?
January 2020 was very hopeful. We were set to have a great year and to have a lot of growth. So as mentioned, we make custom art and custom furniture, especially for commercial spaces. And we had big hotel projects that were about to get launched. We had a couple of very exciting office projects and co-working spaces. So also we were working at that moment with Hong Kong, a Belgian that is in Hong Kong. And we were trying to put him as project manager for potentially to produce more in China. And that's when I heard the first time of COVID. So January, February, he told me his kids weren't going to school and stuff. And it wasn't entirely clear to me what was going on and how big of an impact it would have.
So it was looking like a very promising year full of growth. Raf, did you experience it the same way, or can you also like present your company, imagining it was still January 2020 and what you're...
I think our experience was kind of similar to Katrien's. So we started off the year very positive. We had big plans. One of them was this was going to be our 5th anniversary year. So we were planning for a big event that would happen in June in the Giants baseball park in San Francisco. So we were in the midst of organizing that. Our growth over the past years had been 50 to 60%. So we were envisioning the same kind of growth. And actually the year started off really well. So January was better than last year, the same for February. I had my only international trip in February to Australia. So I was lucky to still be able to visit our customers there. And so yeah, the year was off to just a normal start and looking pretty positive, yes.
Yes, so then fast forward 3 months, it's March, April. Yeah, we see what is happening in Europe, what's happening in New York. It's also coming closer to California, and all of a sudden mid-March, economies have been shut down, borders have been closed. Many entrepreneurs were experiencing a kind of a shock where everything came to a stop. How did you experience that period, like in the short term when it was just all happening?
Yeah, in a state of shock, I would call it. That's, I mean, it was very abrupt. You felt it coming and you knew something was going to happen, but then they said, okay, you have to close, in our case, because we're not an essential business. And in my specific case, I have one part of the team is designers, but other part of the team is really woodworkers, metal workers, and they can't really work from home. And at that moment in time, it was also that they told you, oh, it sticks for 7 days on metal, and et cetera, et cetera. So we had to close in the beginning. It was a big panic. You also, at that moment, I think what I remember very well is that as a team, you know, with your employees, we all looked like who is more fragile and who, you know, do we keep on the payroll and who can, for the moment, go on furlough, you know, or has to go on furlough when it goes further. Because at that moment also, I remember waking up like at 5 a.m. and the Bank of America said that you could apply for whatever the government was giving, but it was all very unclear. And so that was that period where you basically went with the flow and made negotiations to get your costs down as much as possible, but also the revenue was zero, because what we were doing was everybody else was doing that also. So everybody put their projects on hold. In April already, it became clear that the biggest project that we were going to have the purchase order for, that client didn't make it through the pandemic, that they had to file for bankruptcy. And so it became really unclear in the beginning, you know, like, how will it work? My main thing was, okay, how can I make myself an essential business or be able to operate, because I can't carry all those woodworkers just being home for an indefinite, I mean, it was also not clear how long that could be. And so I started developing these acrylic barriers that were for essential businesses like restaurants and stuff. And that way I was able to bring part of the team back in and keep them operational on that production and then also on other production. So, but that it was a big, you know, mystery kind of a thing, you know, like that you didn't know how it was going to evolve. Everybody had kind of put the pause button. The only thing that came out after a couple of weeks is that a lot of renovations in the residential market was happening. But like a lot of the commercial market was kind of flat.
Raf, how did you experience those first months of, yes, what we hear from Katrien, panic, a lack of clarity, where, you know, we have no clue yet what is happening? Yeah. How did you experience it?
I think everybody kind of experienced it in a similar way, even though everybody was maybe in a different industry. nobody could really give you an answer, like what was going to happen, how long would it last, what would be the impact. But part of our team is based in Belgium, and I'm part of the team in California. So we kind of got input because Europe was ahead of us here in the US with cases, with the pandemic really reaching, I would say higher levels of activity. So here in the US, we immediately said like, okay, this is something that's not gonna be over with in a couple of weeks. And so the end of the first quarter, so end of March, we had our all hands, and actually during that all hands, we said, look, let's assume that 2020 is over. And I don't know why we made that decision, but it was like, okay, let's assume that our revenue will only be half of what we envisioned, and just organize ourselves in that way. So I think it was probably luck taking that decision, but what we said, like, we really have to like review everything we do. And so there was no international travel, which we do quite often usually. There were no trade shows, or the first shows were moving into like a virtual mode. The ones early in the year got canceled because they didn't have time to move from an actual event to like a virtual one. So we said like, okay, let's move all those expenses that we planned for and move them to R&D. So we shifted focus completely, and we said if we cannot travel, if we cannot go and visit customers, we have no idea whether they will buy stuff or not, then we might as well spend our focus and time on R&D and coming up with new technology. So that's, I think, maybe that was a lucky shot of looking at it that way. But yeah, I think somehow we felt like this is going to be quite a while. And so that's what we did, but what we did. And one of the maybe stupid or practical impacts of COVID on our operations was we usually manufacture equipment in Belgium and then ship it to the US. And so air freight rates, they went up from, let's say, $1.60 to the highest we paid was $9.20 per kilo. And so just an outbreak of a pandemic influenced our shipping costs, and all of a sudden those costs were like 5 times higher than what we did pre-pandemic. So there were like a lot of like different influences. The good thing is majority of our customers are food processing companies, and they were classified as essential businesses. And so as we were supporting the essential businesses, we could still go and visit them. Although, all the procedures to enter those food processing plants, they were like dramatically different from pre-pandemic, because you could no longer just walk in, at least not in every plant. There were some I would say bad examples of food processing industry, but in general, I think everybody was like adapting, and so I think there was a big impact, also because our sales season typically is January through June. The pandemic or the shutdown or the shelter in place in California happened mid-March. So January, February sales-wise was good. Mid-March, everything came to a halt. So March was still kind of good. And then April, which last year was 60% of our total annual sales. This year, we had 0 sales in April. So we definitely saw a big impact. But yeah, I think we took the decision really early on to say, okay, let's just reorganize the way we do business. So.
Yes, that's what we also have seen with many companies in that short term, where it was sometimes a combination of looking for survival or shifting your focus, like Katrien is saying, on other markets, or as Raf says, on other expenses. But those actions were really like still in the short term, where some were still hoping that it would be over by the summer. But then like a few months into the COVID crisis, we all realized that it is a marathon and not a sprint, and that we would really be in this, first of all, for the long term, but also we realized more and more that even when restrictions will be lifted, the world will not just return to normal as we were used to it before. And so business owners, the good business owners really use this time to think more again in the long term, to reinvent themselves and to prepare their re-entry. We also saw in the poll results that 53% of the people who answered the poll said that they did adapt or pivot their business. So during the summer, when we already look more to the long term, Katrien, how did you adjust your business already looking more forwards to the new circumstances?
Well, for me, again, it's very much a production issue. So right away when we started, when we were allowed to be open, I had a couple of COVID cases in the company. And they're very specific. It's, for example, 2 carvers. But, you know, you can't just, with COVID, you know, find another carver somewhere. And so they were out of circulation for 2 months. And so you realized, okay, if I have to do this, we have to see that we're as safe as possible, but somebody can always bring COVID in or whatever. But it turned out some materials weren't available and all of that. So we were lucky in the sense of that the high-end residential market was booming. And so all of a sudden our framing division was booming, but I had less people. And I had invested in a couple of extra machinery, but we just decided to raise the prices and increase the lead time to as much as double. And everybody, you know, accepted that. So by now that division is not only turning double the revenue, but it's also way more profitable. And, you know, we will keep that as long as possible, but we made partnerships. You know, like I decided, for example, in the past, we would do our own installations, but that became a COVID risk again. And will be a COVID risk, you know, for a while. And I didn't want to think about having all these people in the truck and going and install. So I made partnerships with other artisans or that do something else to share space, for example. And we got clients through them and they got clients through me. And we outsourced our part of our revenue that was installations, where basically we got a lot of new clients through that specific company. So I think there were collaborations that were good and our focus to the residential market. Now, in the meantime, I have to say, since Biden got elected and since the vaccine news, I really feel that certain industries like hotels, that they're coming back. So since last week or the week before, when all the vaccine news happened, even business hotels are now contacting us again and picking up orders that, you know, we had quoted out a year ago. I don't know in which way co-working spaces and offices and stuff will come back. I think that market might be a little lower. So what we are doing is we're working on creating product that we can put in the residential market ourselves, but also use again towards the commercial market once that goes back in full fledged. So that's a little where we're at the moment. But I think, for example, now even since the last 2 weeks, we have a lot of, you know, orders that are coming and you can feel it. So we will all of a sudden be very busy over Christmas and very busy because people want to get prepared by March and April.
You're already looking into the future now.
Yeah, the big thing will be, in the meantime, LA's COVID cases are skyrocketing. I now have my essential things, so I will be able to stay open. But I'm like, the big thing will be to try to keep COVID out of the premises as much as possible. So that's because otherwise, if one of, you know, so we, I mean, it goes, you know, like it goes far, and I don't know if it's interesting, but like I had a morning, an afternoon, and an evening schedule, and then I would put family members together and have little bubbles within the company that only can work together. Now that is not possible anymore because now we have a curfew at 10. So sometimes these things don't make really any, but I'm preparing. One of the things I'm doing is preparing if one of the vendors get COVID, then that company is closed for 2 weeks and it delays everything. So I think that's gonna be the challenge for the next 3 months for us. Now that and the residential market and that commercial market is getting up to speed more again.
And Raf, how did you experience the summer to have another look at your business and see if you could do things differently, like more looking for the long term, how you can adjust or pivot certain things?
I think we mainly focus, and I think it's kind of in line. Of course, Katrien and I were in different businesses, but you start looking like, how can we will be dealing with COVID anyway for the next months, or I even think the next year. And so you start to look at like, how can we organize ourselves in a way that at least business goes on. And I think that's what a lot of business owners or entrepreneurs have done. And in our case, we provide, we call it services to food processing companies. And for them, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, there were more empty shelves than stocked shelves in supermarkets. And so all the food processing industry was under like tremendous pressure. Maybe international shipping wouldn't happen as much, but the domestic market was definitely way up. And so for us, it was like, how can we organize ourselves so that we can keep them going? That if something breaks down, because whether it's software or hardware or any technology, one day it will break down. And so that was our mindset. Like, if it breaks down, how can we keep them going? And so we rolled out what we call a Qcentral platform. And basically what we do is 24/7 monitor every single machine that we have out in the world, so to speak. And so our mindset was like, we want to detect issues before the people who use our technology even realize it. And so we rolled that out this year, which it was already in the works, but we sped up the development of that so that we didn't necessarily have to go on site to those food processing facilities and maybe just flip a switch. So if we could remote all of those troubleshooting, that took the load off or the pressure off of our team, and also reduced the risk of somebody of our team getting in touch with somebody who was infected with COVID. So that was one thing. And another thing was like, we know that our sales season 2020 was over anyway. So we were looking at 21. And so we started the build out of like, call it a mobile demo center. So instead of customers visiting us, having a look at our new machines, we will be taking, and so we started the development of it. We will be taking a mobile, call it a mobile demo center, trailer, so to speak, to the customers. It would be self-contained. It could be completely open. We could do demos outside on the parking lots, whereas in the past, people would either visit us or we would have to take our equipment into food plants. So for us, it was just like, how can we just organize ourselves to deal with this for the next year? And maybe, who knows, maybe after COVID, it's something else. So I think for us, it was like, let's just implement stuff that we can use moving forward.
Yeah. So it's like about new technologies, new ways of working. Also what I heard Katrien say, and what you saw with many companies is where there are new partnerships of ways of collaborating with companies where before, or we wouldn't have thought about it, or we just didn't see the opportunity. So those are some things that also bring positive things for the years to come after COVID. Yes, so now we are fall or winter 2020. There is some very positive news about vaccines. In some countries, they talk about starting somewhere mid-December or mid-January. I think there's also already a lot of people starting to prepare some small celebrations for the end of the year 2020. So we are really looking forward to return to, yes, some kind of a normal life. How do you see the future for yourself, but also for your business, Katrien?
Well, yeah, I think you know, I think we will have to see which industries come back and in which way, you know, and in which capacity. As I said before, like, for example, offices, I'm really looking like at China. I'm still in contact there to see how people come back there. And I think there will be changes. Some markets will be smaller for us. Some markets will be bigger. I can imagine a lot of people wanting to travel. But I'm also retaining some from the COVID situation. So we now, for example, have a project manager that is a former client of ours in New York. So I'm hoping that all that travel for business and inefficiencies won't necessarily have to happen in the future. But I think it will be a step by step. I feel like if, you know, if we get through this now, I mean, which we are, then I feel we're in a way stronger than before, because it really needed you to inflect. But also the relationships with the clients that you have now, it's a, you know, is way more personal, and the relationship with your team is way more personal. I mean, you know, way more from the team than you did before. There was also the whole time during the pandemic, like a mental checkup with everybody. And once that one was down and the other one was up, or they had issues in the family or whatever. And so I feel that team feeling is bigger, right? And I feel the clients that have supported us during the pandemic, I now know a lot about their kids and their home situations, and, you know, like, and their fears, and, you know, what keeps them awake. So that those bonds have intensified in a certain way, which I think wouldn't have been possible if there wouldn't have been COVID. So I hope that kind of keeps on going too in the future, that it kind of, these values keep to be important, you know, in a certain way. That's but yeah, I'm positive, but I think it will be a gradual thing, and there will be new things, you know, like, for example, we now got requests for e-health offices, and we will do millwork for them, that, and they are opening new locations. I mean, their first location in LA, but they're already planning to have 4 or 5. That's the same, probably, that will replace probably part of my retail revenue or my co-working space revenue. You know, there's new industries that will be coming, and you know, that will replace things. And I think the framing revenue will stay the same, you know, because you have those new clients now, so they're not going to go away, you know.
Yeah, so a positive message where we actually also hope that certain things that we learned or experienced during the pandemic will stay. So
the whole thing also, that I don't have to go back to the studio the whole time, and that you can do part of it at home, or part of it I can go in at 10, but somebody else comes in at 7. That whole flexibility of that, I am not going back to the other scenario for 1000%.
Yeah.
You know.
And what about you, Raf? I know that you are a big optimist. So can you tell, or can you tell the people at home how you see the future?
I think it's really in line with Katrien as well. It's like sometimes people ask you, like, well, when do you think we can go back to normal, or when do you think this will be over? And my first gut feel is always, I hope we never go back to normal, or the way it was, because I think we all should have learned from this. And like Katrien says, whether it's about like flexible working, doing more from home, I've like traveled like crazy for the past, I would say 15 years. It's a luxury not to have to travel that often, and still business goes on. And so I think I'm very optimistic. Yes, I do think that 21 is still going to be COVID affected. So maybe I'm negative there, but what I told our team is, like, just assume that 21 is going to be the same as 20. And so basically, let's assume that next year is going to be, to some extent, a mess. And every month that it's not going to be a mess is a win. And so we start from like maybe the negative side, but we say whatever, the sooner business starts going and all that stuff, the more of a bonus that is. And so that is our mindset. But yeah, I think we all learned a lot. I think, yeah, I think it is a matter of looking for the opportunities. And maybe that's in line with Katrien, where she says, like, in some areas I see new opportunities, and others, yes, maybe they're gone. And I think the same goes for us, and the same most likely goes for every single business. It's like if you're stuck in, like, this is what our business is about, then I think you will have a hard time, because after COVID there will be something else, and it can be a financial crisis, it can be anything. But I think if you have that mindset and say, look, whatever they throw at us, we'll figure out a way, then I think
Yes.
I personally believe, and maybe that's a little bit difference between a Belgian mindset and an American mindset, but I do still believe in that American dream, and I do believe that whatever, yeah, life throws at you, just grab it and run with it, and it's so yeah, I'm definitely very positive. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, but it's been very nice to have this conversation with two people from very different industries, and to also see what we have seen with so many companies, that has really been a wave through 2020. First shock, then looking for new opportunities, and now really looking forward to what 2021 will bring. I hope for everybody here on the call that you found also some inspiration in the testimonials from Raf and Katrien, and that you are looking forward also to 2020. I believe it will also still be impacted by COVID-19, but for me, also I believe things can only get better, and I really look forward also to travel again and to see people and meet people in real life again. So that's one aspect I really want to come back. Thank you very much, Raf and Katrien, for this conversation.
Thank you, Katrien, Raf, and Sophie for this interesting conversation. So yeah, we are all facing challenges, and this is helpful to figure out the next steps that can lead to business transformation and further success. We'll have now a Q&A session with the question that we have already received. I've seen a few questions that were already answered in the chat. The first question I have here is, what is your advice for business converting to online that were not online previously? A few key advice that you could give.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it depends in which industry you are, but for example, the design industry, Instagram is really important. It's even more important to have Instagram than to have a website. And you can do shopping on Instagram now. So I mean, there is something like Planoly, but there's others too, where you basically can get your product. You need good photography, get your product out there. You can really target towards your audience if you want to pay a little bit for the marketing, and you can have a shop straight on Instagram. So it needs to be, I would say, good photography. It needs to be easy, accessible if it's towards the residential market, and you have to really target your market. And then your brand needs to stand for something. I really believe now, I mean, even when I buy a CNC machine or a laser cutter, I look at the brand too. So there is this brand connection, which I think only became stronger now with COVID, you know. So, but yeah, I think find an easy platform and make it very user-friendly and make it look beautiful and meaningful.
Makes a lot of sense. Do you have any few advice, Raf?
I'm personally not that much involved with the online business, but I think and maybe that's in line, is like, for us, what we've seen is like we connected a lot through like social media, and for us personally as a business, LinkedIn is a very good platform because yeah, we're business to business company, and I think it's maybe what Katrien says as well. Is like, you have to have a consistent brand going on, or a consistent story about the brand. And I think that's what I think for any business is important. So it's connecting with your customers, or connecting with people that see value in what you do, even whether they're customers or not, but they become your brand ambassadors as well. And I think that's a real important thing for us. Part of what we do is also giving back, and that's of course, in a year like this, you would say, well, giving back is going to be difficult, and yes, it is. But if you have the opportunity, I think that's important, and people relate to that as well. So we've done several fundraisers where we matched donations, and I think it's just part of doing good business, and people connect to it, people relate to it, and so I think it's maybe not necessarily about how to sell online, but I think it's about online presence as well, and that results in sales, and just draws in people.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Sophie, do you have any questions that came to you?
Not beforehand, but maybe something more about the online business. Yes, it's indeed a movement that we already saw in the United States, where people really already discovered the convenience of just being able to order online. Now we also see it more and more in Europe. And it's really still looking if it does make sense for your business to be online. For many businesses it will, but you still have to look if for your business, your customers, you can find them online, if it makes sense for your product. So really to restart doing that analysis, just as if you were starting a new business and seeing what your best way to market is. So
interesting. I see a question that has been asked about the relationship with employees, how it has changed. I think you already answered that part, Katrien, but there was a further question. Will you use more full-time or more part-time? So is flexibility will be a factor of some sort in the future for you?
With me, because it's so vast, the type of people I have. I have people like, for example, if you work in a frame, you have to be in the store, in the studio. One person has to be that, so she has to be there the whole time. There's other people who can flexibly work from home. You know, so it depends on the person really. But I've always been that way, and you have to. In California, you have also to take into account all the laws that are around it. But I think having great core teams is important. And yeah, if you know, flexibility is of course important. It's you know, it needs to work for everybody, and maybe that is also in the pandemic. It depends what your situation is. Do you have kids at home or not? But still, you know, if you work in a supermarket, for example, and you have kids at home, the employer cannot say you can stay at home, you know, like, so I think but I mean, definitely in our case, you know, with COVID and stuff, the relationship with the employees is more intensified, I'd say. So
I also believe that in the future, we will see more and more hybrid forms. For example, a mix between in-person and online, a mix between working from home, working in the office, but also a mix between employees and contractors and freelancers, because indeed you really want to have that flexibility.
Yeah, but but there the issue is California is against contractors, really. So that's
because, yes, you are seen.
But that's a lot of people want to work like contractors in a certain way because they have the biggest flexibility that way. But yeah, so for example, also for COVID, some people get very anxious when they're at home. so they came and worked in the studio, and others prefer to work at home. So you also have that mental balance, which I think in times of crisis, it has been really surprising to, you know, to kind of see how everybody reacts and to kind of try to monitor it. You know, sometimes I felt like I was like, you know, mother chicken and the therapist all at once, you know, so I don't know.
Wearing different hats.
Yeah.
Raf, some word on that topic, because it's very important.
I think it's indeed you interact in a different way than before, and I think people appreciate that interaction more. So we for example, everybody's working from home, but we do have an office in Belgium. We do have an office here in California. So what we told people is like, you're welcome to come to the office if you want, but I don't come to the office every day. Don't be there with 3-4 people if you don't have to be there. So just figure out a way what works for you. And indeed, some people are perfectly happy being at home the full week, and others, they just want to get out of the house for 1 day or 2 days in the weekend. And I think that's something where before we didn't know better. I think everybody who had an office job went to the office and that was it. And people that worked from home. And so now there is a whole different dynamic. And I think in the case of Qcify, we hired more full-time people this year. And so it's, for us, full-time makes most sense. But, and Katrien mentioned it earlier on, it's like you also try to find strategic partnerships. And so that's something we did this year as well. So moving into 2021, or even, let's say when COVID is past us at some point, those partnerships will still be there. And I think it just pushed any business to figuring out a new dynamic. And I think that new dynamic is here to stay. I don't see it change back to the way it was before, or at least I hope it doesn't. So
interesting. Okay, so I see that time is running fast. Sophie, have you a last thing, or should we close the session now?
I have no more questions. If somebody at home still has a question, please ask. So. Okay.
Yes, we'll take some question offline anyway. So we are gonna show the way to contact each of us in the coming slides. And yeah, so it has been a great session. Thank you to our panelists, Ambassador Régibeau and Sleeuwagen. And thank you all from different locations in the US to join tonight. A replay will be available soon on YouTube channel. Thank you to Jean-Baptiste Piron for making it happen and all the work behind the scene, including tonight. Do not hesitate to contact our club if we can be of any help, and follow us on our social media. Have a great evening and see you soon.